We've done the ACC, we've done the SEC, we've done the Big Ten. Now, these aren't predictions. We're giving you our best bet from a win total standpoint. So like overrated or underrated. Remember, next week is prediction week. Going to go through all the conferences, some group of fives, who makes the playoff, who wins the Natty, and who wins the Heisman. So make sure you're strapped in and locked in for that. I know you will be. But before we do, I want to go over the totals so people kind of know the teams and what are expected. So these are the expected total wins, okay, or the average, right? You can take the over, the under for the Big 12. UCF, 7.5. Colorado, 5.5. Kansas, 8.5. God, never thought I'd say that. Utah, 9.5. TCU, 7.5. West Virginia, 6.5. Oklahoma State, 8.5. Cincinnati, 5.5. Iowa State, 7.5. Baylor, 5.5. Houston, 3.5. Houston, you guys definitely have a problem, but you may fix it. We'll get to that in a second. K-State, 9.5. Texas Tech, 7.5. BYU, 4.5. Arizona, 7.5. And Arizona State, 4.5. David, who do you have as exceeding expectations?
You want to hear? You really want to know?
I really want to. I want to open my ears up.
Why don't we start with the Utah Utes?
I love this.
That's where I want to start, with the Utah Utes.
I'm in love.
Coach Kyle Whittingham. I mean, Cam Rising coming back. Remember, the last 2 times that Cam Rising was playing quarterback for Utah, they won the Pac-12, and they won 10 games each of those 2 seasons, was injured a year ago. Can I rattle off this Utah schedule for you?
Dude, rock and roll, baby.
Now, keep in mind, their over-under win projection right now is 9.5, so you got to get to 10 to hit this. Southern Utah, Baylor at home, at Utah State, at Oklahoma State. That's going to be a fun one. That's September 21st. They get Arizona at home, at Arizona State, TCU at home, Houston on the road, BYU at home, at Colorado, Iowa State at home. Then they finish the year at UCF. So let's just be conservative and give them a loss at Oklahoma State, all right? And then let's say they lose either Arizona or Iowa State or on the road at UCF.
Still hit.
You'd still hit at 10-2.
I think it's a great number. Me and you both agree on that. Anybody that watched the show knows that I'm higher than the front row of a Bob Marley concert on Utah this year. And when we get into prediction time next week, don't be surprised if that theme stays there. I'm going to give you mine, David, because I really do like that. I think there's a really good chance they win the Big 12. I'm going to go with a team that a lot of people are very interested to see, but I'm going to go Houston.
Really?
That 3.5 number, and it's for a couple reasons. One, I've coached against Willie Fritz before. The dude can just coach ball.
Yeah.
Like he gets the most out of his guys. The system that he runs, you know, it's kind of changed and evolved offensively. But when you look at Houston and their roster, right? We know Dana Holgorsen was let go, and I'm going to go through the schedule in a minute. Donovan Smith, I think, has a chance to be a really good player. He's just got to eliminate the bad mistakes. He's got all the tools, big guys like 6'5", 240. You look at what they returned at the skill position. They did lose some guys at wide receiver, the transfer portal, but they still have some guys. Houston's always going to have some skill players on the outside. The offensive line, that's where I think you're going to see the biggest advancing in Houston because they can't get much worse. Right up front on the offensive line, protecting the passer, and the ground game's got to get better, which is another form of protecting the passer. But I know Willie Fritz understands that. But then on the defensive side, they were awful last year. Absolutely awful, about as bad as you could get. The pass rush wasn't there. They went to the portal and basically rebuilt this defense. I think they brought in 13 guys from the portal that are gonna play. They've got a JUCO nose that I like a lot that's gonna give them some help. But this is me believing in Willie Fritz and looking at this schedule, man. You got to get 4 wins to hit, right? It's 3.5. You got UNLV, game 1 at home. I think that's like a 2.5, 3-point spread. I really like Houston in that game. You're going to lose to Oklahoma on the road. Then you get Rice at home. Should beat them. That's 2. That's 2-1. Then you go play Cincinnati. I think you're good enough to beat Cincinnati. I think these are probably going to be 2 of the worst teams in the Big 12 when you look at it. But let's say you lose that one. You're 2-2. You get Iowa State at home. It's a winnable game, but let's say you lose that one. You're 2-3. Then you get TCU. Let's say you lose on the road, 2-4. Say you lose to Kansas, 2-5. You're going to lose to Utah and Kansas State, 2-6. What I'm looking at is this Baylor game that you get at home, right? Second to the last game, and then you get BYU on the road. I feel good about 3 wins, and I think they are going to win one of the games out of Cincinnati, Iowa State, and then you look at obviously at the end there with BYU. If they win one of those games, that gets you that 4-win mark. It starts with UNLV, but I'm telling you, I don't think Houston's going to be very good, right? But I think they're going to be better than 3.5 wins. I think they get at least 4, maybe 5. I don't think they go to a bowl game, But when your over-under marks at 3.5, you don't got to go to a bowl game.
Yeah, that's true. So when you coached against Willie Fritz, was he at Georgia Southern?
He was at Georgia Southern.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and
Willie's a dog.
Wish he had stayed there and not taken that Tulane job.
We played him at home and away. And I tell you, going and playing, and you know this at Statesboro, it's so interesting because they let that grass grow. Almost like Notre Dame. Like it was a very thick grass, like a high grass. And dude, I'll be honest, when we played Georgia Southern, I don't know who y'all's strength and conditioning coach was, but you guys looked like Wolverine and all these guys walking.
Good.
It was
That's
crazy.
how we like it.
It was crazy.
It's not a bad pick. I think I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears.
Really?
Right now, I believe that total is at 5.5. And if you look at their schedule, one big thing that I like, I think they went and got Jaquan Finn from Toledo, who's a pretty damn
He can
good
stay
player.
healthy. He's nice.
He can stay healthy. It really opens up this offense. You bring in Spavital as your offensive coordinator. And what was your thing that held you back last year? That was defense. Who's your head coach? It's Dave Aranda, obviously a defensive-minded guy. You go look at the schedule. Obviously, you have Utah on the road week 2. I mean, pack your bags and good luck. But you do get Oklahoma State at home. You do get Kansas at home. You get BYU at home, Air Force at home. You do have 6 to 7 wins on this schedule. So I don't think the Baylor Bears would be a bad bet.
No, I don't. And I hope for Dave they're able to turn around. Don't forget, a couple years ago, Dave Aranda, he was hotter than Hansel at the Mill.
Yeah, he was the guy.
When it comes to guys that are going to get that next big job after leaving LSU. Now on the other side, I got a feeling there's going to be some agreement here. And this is the question that came down to me. How many wins were they going to give Colorado? What was that going to be at? It's at 5.5.
5.5.
So the question becomes, and let's pull that schedule up. The question becomes, do you think Colorado's going to make a bowl game? Because that's if
what
they
it
do,
is. Yeah.
you don't hit. If they don't, you hit. I don't want to hear any APR or any of that stuff. That's just kind of extra fat there on the beef. But
All right, let's go through the schedule. North Dakota State week 1.
I'm going to give you a win.
All right, at Nebraska week 2.
Loss.
All right, at Colorado State.
I think they lose that game.
Let's go ahead and give them a win.
Let's give them a win, though.
Let's
Let's give them 2. Let's be honest.
Baylor at home.
I'll give you a win there.
I'll give them a win too right now.
All right, at UCF.
Loss.
Kansas State at home.
Loss.
At Arizona.
Loss.
Cincinnati at home.
Win.
Win there.
At Texas Tech.
Loss.
Utah at home.
Loss.
No.
At Kansas.
Loss.
Oklahoma State at home.
Loss.
So
Dog,
to me, it's
I'm
4
telling
right
you.
now.
And-
But
and
even
this
if
is
they-
That's with us giving them a win at Colorado.
We are not hate. We don't hate. Nobody here hates Deion Sanders or hates Colorado or none of that. I'm just trying to win money. Like, take your feelings out of it. I'm trying to win money. I don't see 6 dubs on that schedule.
It
To be
doesn't
honest with you,
help.
I feel better about Colorado not winning 6 games than I do about Houston winning 4.
Yeah, and it doesn't help right now. The 3 favorites in the conference, Utah, Oklahoma State, and
Kansas State.
Those are 3 of your home games.
Yeah.
You know, and I know you're like, oh, well, yeah, we want to play them at home, but I don't think you're beating those teams no matter where you play them. And then Arizona, you got to play on the road. Nebraska in the non-conference.
And
let's even say, even if you beat Nebraska, though, if they're starting a young quarterback, Dylan Raiola, Shador Sanders freaks out and throws 3 Hail Marys to Travis Hunter, that still gets you to 5 with the rest of the schedule we broke down.
Yeah, and listen, I think Colorado is going to be better than what they were last year. I think Shadur's a dog. I think Travis Hunter, I'd love to have Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter on my team. I would love to have. Now, you talk about the way they carry themselves off the field. I watch Shador on the field. I see a lot of good things. I watch Travis on the field. I see a lot of good things. They will be better up front, but they're still going to be bad up front, and they don't have enough depth. That's a humongous problem. And with the North Dakota State game, the more I look into it, I do want to, we try and have our viewers win the water cooler here. The more I look into this North Dakota State game, don't confuse this North Dakota State team with the dominant North Dakota State teams of the past, because that has now become South Dakota State. They are the big dog in FCS, and they should be a big dog again this year with who they return at quarterback. Not saying North Dakota State isn't good, but they also have a new coach this year. Why? Because their coach, their head coach, Matt Entz, is now the linebackers coach for Lincoln Riley at USC. So you got a brand new head coach. You're having to replace a lot. You're not the most dominant team. They're still going to be good up front. They still have an NFL offensive lineman or 2 on this team. Schematically, they're going to be very similar. That's what they do. They're going to line up and try and run at your teeth, run at your face. And that's okay. I just don't know if they're good enough defensively to be able to stop Colorado enough to win the game, even if they sit on the ball. The game I'm telling you I think is going to be more interesting than North Dakota State, Colorado, is South Dakota State and Oklahoma State. It's only a 9-point spread right now. So, Vegas understands, this isn't This isn't Southeast Louisiana State Central. This isn't the Mud Dogs.
So that was the team I was about to bring up next. And I just want to ask you guys about them because right now they have Oklahoma State at 8.5 wins. Remember, 9 starters on both sides of the ball coming back.
You're really good up front. You're huge up front.
Like you said, South Dakota State, that's at home. Then Arkansas at home.
You should be 2-0.
Arkansas at home. At Tulsa.
Win.
Utah at home. They have to go on the road and play Kansas State. Okay. They get West Virginia at home, who I want to talk about next. BYU on the road, Baylor on the road, Arizona State at home, at TCU, Texas Tech at home, and then they finish at Colorado.
That is a great back half of the schedule for Oklahoma State. That Utah game is going to be huge. Here's what I want to see with Oklahoma State. I've said this multiple times before we move on. We want to know what you think. What's the best number out of the ones I read? Which one do you like in the chat? Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. We really appreciate you guys. We're almost to 150,000 and football season isn't even here yet. We want to hit it before we even get there. When it comes to Oklahoma State, we know that Mike Gundy has shifted that team, the identity of that team, from a wheel and deal, let's spit it out, have fun, throw for a gazillion million yards like they did with Brandon Weed and whatever. They are now a line it up, let's get in heavy personnel, a lot more North Dakota State, right? Than they have been in the past. The word is out on Ollie Gordon. People know what Oklahoma State wants to do. So going into a year where you've had success here recently, can you keep adjusting to the adjustment? And that comes down to Alan Bowman at quarterback. I know he's played for 35 years in college, all right, but the turnovers are a problem when you look at it. Sometimes I watch Bowman throw and I'm like, I get it. Like this, I get it. I understand why. Then I watch him in the decision-making, just absolutely baffles me. He's like the dude from Split. Like, it's crazy. So it's hard for me to trust Oklahoma State to be national championship worthy, but 8.5?
8.5, man.
I like the over there.
Last one quickly here. West Virginia, 6.5. All right, which I mean, this is another one. I'm looking at this over. Obviously, they start with Penn State. They get them at home. That's going to be a great opener. Albany, which that game's at home.
You know who went to Albany? You know what player who ended up transferring to Florida State, just got drafted by the Rams? Jared Verse. They saw him on tape against somebody else they were scouting. They were like,
really?
Him?
That was their first
round
draft.
You gave me zero
pick.
time to answer that.
I know. I just want to make sure.
You would have gotten it, though.
I would have gotten it.
Oh, yeah, because you looked it up.
At Pittsburgh, Kansas at home, at Oklahoma State, Iowa State at home, Kansas State at home, at Arizona, at Cincinnati, Baylor home, UCF home, and at Texas Tech.
See, I don't hate the over for West Virginia there, but why would I take that when there's 4 or 5 in front of it that I really like? Now, Garrett Green, Neil Brown saved himself with the year he had last year, and I'm happy because I like Neil a lot. I do want to say one more thing about Oklahoma State. Do you know for the first time in the history of T-Boone Pickens Stadium, Oklahoma State has sold all their tickets?
Love it.
That's awesome.
Love it.
That is awesome. Shout out to the fan base at Oklahoma State. That is fantastic. Hey, what's up, YouTube? If you're not excited about football season, please don't subscribe to this channel. If you are, welcome home. Subscribe and come on in. The water's just nice.